When I realized the form of this was already in the game, honestly, it was a pretty big realization. Now, we all know the story. The trading post is Blizzard putting a whole new focus on, well, casual and non-instanced play in World of Warcraft, and ensuring that players can earn cool stuff for their characters every month. We're also getting some new heritage armor again. We've got patches coming faster than, well, almost ever before in the game's history, and Dragonflight marked a massive change in how much customization is in the game. I mean, hell, we've got gardening tools, casual outfits with recolors, dragon customization. The team's got like 700 plus members now. They can do a lot. Now then is the perfect time to plant a seed, one that we have all been waiting for since they first tried it out in patch 5.2. One of World of Warcraft's best patches ever, and that is class customizations. It's an idea that could go very far, and technically, we actually got a version of it in Dragonflight. This is going to be hype as hell. Just like, well, I've got to tease you a little bit of this month's Patreon loot. Yes, if you're on our Patreon through the end of February, you'll get the big old bundle of loot. We've got a few special things lined up with, of course, our game coming out. But man, I've got to say, the compass pin is utterly gorgeous. I absolutely love how this came out. So if you want to support what we are doing, get behind the scene blogs, early access to videos and other stuff too, then check out the Patreon. It is the best way to support what we do, and in return you will get physical content and also, well, content to watch. Okay, let's get to the video then. Okay, look at these. These are Night Warrior spell effects. These were posted on ArtStation by Ethan Zink, a senior VFX artist on World of Warcraft. They even have a name, Dark Lunar. Yeah, so they're there. Wouldn't it be awesome if these were then available to, say, oh, I don't know, a balanced druid? I mean, there's obviously Moonfire, Star Surge, and Starfall there. So imagine having the option to just turn these on or off on the fly. You know, like how Warlock Green Fire works. And if you're unfamiliar, in patch 5.2, Blizzard added a pretty challenging quest line for Warlocks that really deepened their lore. It gave them a really fun solo fight that was, I mean, basically imagine a mage tower, but designed specifically for a Warlock. It was really, really cool. It was kind of like that, merged with the Class Order Hall quest. It was awesome. It was called the Green Fire quest because, funny enough, you unlock the ability to turn all of your fire spells green. And to this day, though it is easy to get, it's it's a bit like a status symbol. A real Warlock main has got Green Fire. Even the questline itself is fun for the lore enjoyers, and it actually set up, well, a lot of the Legion Warlock class story as well. So, real strong. Anyway, it's way too easy to imagine a balanced druid Night Warrior questline maybe doing, the exact same thing pretty much, and unlocking these really cool effects for your character. Maybe you spend half an hour with Tyrande, you revisit her and Malfurion's past. You know, maybe something goes a bit wrong, maybe you just spar against her, but either way, it would be just a real awesome quest that you could do, and a really, really cool reward. Now, Blizzard have got the resources to do way more than just Green Fire now, so I'm not going to say that it's easy, but it sure as hell is possible, a lot more so than it was in the past. I mean, it's been possible for years, and now that their team is larger, it's even more so. And there's actually evidence to support this in Dragonflight. You might not know it because it was added very quietly, but there is technically some spell effect customization, but only a few people will have noticed. And I suppose I'm one of them because I play a disciplined priest. So, look at this. These are shadow-flavored versions of the Shadow Priest's existing light spells. They're the exact same spell, just of course with a different damage type and visual effect. And it's triggered only by having a buff from pressing an ability, right? So, Shadow Covenant's pretty cool. Now, imagine instead of that being a temporary combat ability, that's maybe something permanent, like the Worgen or Evoker form changes. It's entirely plausible within the current game, and we literally see it in this expansion. So, what is stopping them then? Now that they have a renewed focus on customization at every level of this game, and a team size that is triple that of other AAA games and absurdly larger than the team of Mists of Pandaria. As far as I can tell, absolutely nothing is stopping them. Classes get more customization, they get more flavor, players get long sought after rewards, they get cool quest lines, and Blizzard get opportunities to tell more character and class stories. I mean, this sounds exactly like a complete win for this game, and let's be real, class content is a humongous seller. It resonates with people, right? I mean, look at Legion. Look how much people still want class order halls to be a thing in the game and to matter more. Hell, they're even the perfect delivery vector for this, and Blizzard still do consider those order halls to be important because fairly recently, when they were adding Priest to a bunch of other different races, they actually put NPCs in class order halls to reflect that. So they still know those class order halls exist. So that's the idea of today's video then, class visual customization in the style of Green Fire and similar. Obviously, we need to convince Blizzard that these are good ideas. We need to help get the word out. Maybe there's people who've been pushing for this within Blizzard for a long time, and all they need is the community to rise up, say, hey, we'd like that, and then they could pitch the idea to their superior. Now, of course, it wouldn't be fair if it was just druids and warlocks, so let's give them some more ideas. Imagine the light versus void expansion happens. It finally comes out. Yrel just kicks open a hole in the sky and the AU Genadar comes through. There's a sky full of big dimensional fortresses and light-bound orcs. But they're not the bad guys, at least not yet. And in fact, they've got a hell of a lot to teach us. Draenei and orcs both have a good grasp of shamanism, so what would happen if a shaman was taken into the Lightbound? Surely, like Dark Shaman in Cataclysm sort of twisted the elements to their will, a Lightbound Shaman could perhaps do the same. I mean, imagine a new elemental model with bits of rock, fire, water being forcibly held together by like a crackling light. I bet the artists would love to take a crack at that concept. Then, later on in this expansion, imagine N'Zoth shows up. That teased return happens. Maybe Yrel's getting a bit out of control, who knows? And maybe that leads to some of our paladins having a bit of an identity crisis. Is there a way to use similar powers without leading into the light as hard as the Lightbound do? I mean, basically, bam, you've got a good reason for Locust Walker and Illyria to help a paladin like her son, Arator, become the first Void Paladin. And anyone who does that questline could learn a few new tricks. Hell, there's actually a light and void shield that is literally in the game files. I believe it's probably for the trading post, but it's an idea that Blizzard are playing with. They've even played with that idea, obviously, with the Shadow Priest, now with the Discipline Priest, and also with Anduin Wrynn, who used a bunch of void magic in the pre-Shadowlands novel. So, things like this would be back-of-the-box features for Blizzard. They would be huge hype announcements, and they would give some of the most played classes in this game some long overdue love. Sure, they're not the lofty class overhauls that some players would want, but this is the version that Blizzard wouldn't need to worry about too much. They could just give it to their VFX artists and get to work on it. You don't really have to worry about design considerations. So our few examples have been very canon, I think, and very lore attached with where things could be going, because I think that's what's going to give Blizzard some big wins. But of course, the trading post exists, as well as many more patches in Dragonflight to fill with content. There are dozens, if not more concepts, put together and with loads of artwork by fans of the game that would be free wins if just thrown in, from all of the insane glyph customization ideas that people have had to crazy lists of class visual overhauls. There was a great one put together by Keyboard Turn and the Lost Codex during Shadowlands. Blue Dragon Fire for fire mages, maybe more bluish arcane spell effects, and a more obviously sort of enhanced magic ice for frost. Those could be neat little additions for mages after they get to know Kelagos and his new family. You've got the Sunwalker Paladins. Could we give them a more sun-like, fiery light instead of the very clean paladin look once we perhaps learn more about the history of Anshe? Maybe hunters could lean into the more magical side of things for new shot spell effects, like this spellbow concept, or maybe lean heavier into wind after spending so much time, of course, hunting in the Onaran Plains. A lot of different things. The melee and physical classes are probably the hardest to do, so the idea here, I think, would be to just go wild with spell effects, instead of, going super heavy into class-like theme replacements. I mean, things like warriors getting Condemn. That actually proved popular enough to replace the default execute animation in the game. So even something like a Jaredine set for warrior that comes with some heavier sound effects and maybe some lava particles on attacks, that would be perfect for dwarves. Imagine that with a Dark Iron Dwarf Heritage Armor set. I mean, that would be awesome. I don't think anyone would say no to that. The best stuff, I think, would be free wins that currently complete missing fantasies within World of Warcraft, like this Blood Knight Paladin concept. This is something that we've basically been begging for since 2007. Or maybe take what they started with monks and, finish them. You see, monks can turn their crackling jade lightning red. They can do that to match Chi-Ji via a glyph, but nothing else. And then there's fist weaving. It leans so heavily into Chi-Ji that they actually summon it. So the opportunity there for a full overhaul of the visual effects that changes their mist to the same kind of red would just be neat. You'd know then if a Mistweaver was going into melee or ranged, sheer just by the color of the mist whenever you first see them. I would take that class fantasy one step further. I just think it's exciting. The possibilities are endless here. There are so many classes and so many ways they can be matched together in WoW's lore. I mean, hey, you can basically make a Dark Ranger Hunter now. What if you had some visual effects to match that up, to more fully theme it into being a Dark Ranger? A lot of people would love that. What does a more necromantic feeling of Demonology or Affliction Warlock feel like? What about Unholy Death Knight, something there that's a bit more inflicting spiritual wounds and summoning ghosts and specters? Basically, the tech is there, so is the framing and the content that we could do to earn it. All they would have to do is to get VFX artists to work, maybe some animators. So, are there any Green Fire-like concepts that you would like to see Blizzard try to put out for your class? The more thematically complete ones like the Demon Hunter, or maybe more simple ones like a Rogue. Those might be tricky, but if Warlocks have had Green Fire alone for the last decade, then I think people would be pretty damn okay if some classes were left out for a while and we just got some features here piecemeal, right? We'd all be happier if we could just roll a new alt just to get some of this cool new customization. Would that not perfectly match Blizzard's more alt-friendly future for the game? So let me know, what do you think? What are your ideas? Right, let's all contribute them, and I suppose if you are, I don't know, if you're giving Blizzard feedback somehow, maybe suggest this, right? Because who knows? I'm sure there are people on that team that are dying to do cool things, because the people who work in World of Warcraft, they tend to love WoW, they tend to love the lore in WoW, and I'm sure those VFX artists have so many, tests that they've done in the visual development process that have never seen the light of day, and so many ideas and things that maybe were greenlit but only got halfway there. I mean, imagine what the cutting room floor would look like for that VFX team. right? I mean, even think about the cool effects they've maybe done for some bosses or some NPCs, like with that Night Warrior set that we talked about at the very start of the video. There's so much there. I would even wonder how many concepts they sort of have figured out and would just need to allocate some production time to. Honestly, I think this would just be super hype for the game, and especially noticing that, of course, now that it's a bit more viable, you know, we're picking Shadow Covenant as a Disc Priest, and we're getting, you know, the Shadow version of Penance and Halo. It just makes me think, like, yeah, come on, we could almost certainly do this kind of thing. I think it's exactly the sort of content that Blizzard would be dying to give to players, given, I think, a lot of what's resonated with this expansion. So let me know what you think anyway. Of course, if you would like a little bit of, I suppose, class customization for yourself in the old real life, I've got to say, I think this pin is... I think it's actually my favorite that we've ever done. I love it. It's awesome. So that's one of the things in what is going to be a very large bundle of loot for everybody over on our Patreon this month. Okay, take care. See you next time.